When your social media actions eventually get to the point that they start to threaten the bank balance of the purse holders at the top, you will be removed. This is the way. I just did the Joss Whedon video yesterday. You know, there was a point in time where I actually used to do a video a day, and I haven't done that for a while, and I'm not going to go back to it. But I did actually find myself wondering, how did I ever do that? And then things like this week happened. I'm like, oh, yeah, right. This is how I was more focused on the topical stuff. Not that I'm going to start doing that a lot more, not if I can help it. But there are some things that just, I see what's going on. I run it through my brain and my brain goes, this bit. Let's talk about this bit. So this is not going to be a celebration or a condemnation of the firing of Gina Carano from The Mandalorian and any involvement in any future Star Wars properties. This is going to be a much more practical look. First, let us recap what has been going on. Gina Carano is a supporting character in the first two seasons of The Mandalorian. She was introduced partway into season 1 and was fairly well liked. She initially got into a bit of hot water ahead of the release of season 2 when on her social media profile on Twitter, she had something up that came across as mocking transgender people. She did a little bit of a walk back on that after it started causing problems, but then shortly after started getting in rows and fights with the people who were still coming at her. So rather than, make an amendment and move on, she kind of kept bringing it back up. So that was the first round of the calls to fire Gina Carano, which I actually did a video on at the time. Now, more recently, she, in around November, was posting an awful lot of anti-mask material. Again, social media. I mean, all this is on social media. So, unlike, say, the video I did on Joss Whedon, which was about his behavior on set, this is about her behavior off set. So, a little bit of a different ball of wax. That's kind of why I'm doing a video, because it's a different conversation. So, the straw that broke the camel's back on this, the apparently third strike and you're out, was when she did a post comparing the idea that people didn't like her political opinions with the oppression and genocide of Jewish people during the Holocaust. And generally, when you start to use the Holocaust as an analogy for what you as a celebrity who is saying things that not everyone likes is going through, that's probably tone deaf enough to get you booted off something. And she is. Lucasfilm has confirmed that she is no longer involved with the project and will not be employed by them in future. So, here's kind of what I want to talk about. It's the fact that, honestly, what got her fired, ultimately, wasn't really the opinion she was holding. She'll argue otherwise. The people who are claiming that this is all part of cancel culture will claim otherwise. But honestly, it wasn't her views that got her fired. It was the fact that she kept generating bad press over and over and over again. Although, to be fair, if she had done that last one first, that might have done it. Like, that was a whew. But ultimately, the issue is that she didn't do what her own co-star on the same show, who was also a point of contention when she was hired, did, which was keep her head down. I'm talking about Rosario Dawson with that reference. Now, Dawson had some issues because she and other members of her family were in civil litigation over accusations of verbal, physical, and mental abuse of a trans man who knew them. Now, At this point, I should have checked. I don't know if the entire case has been dropped. Dawson herself has been removed from the lawsuit. And the main thing that she did, now granted, this is a little bit different than just expressing your opinion on social media, but there was controversy around her when she was fired. That video that I mentioned earlier that I did, I talked about Gina Carano, but I also talked about Rosario Dawson at the same time because people were talking at the time I did that about wanting them both fired. Rosario Dawson never really spoke publicly about that at any point. She did the classic Hollywood thing, which is keep your head down, don't talk about the scandal, don't engage in any of the behavior that you're already being scrutinized for. It's a very classic playbook, and it still works. Interestingly enough, one of the first videos I ever did talking about sort of the impact of revelations about a creator's behavior and how that reflected on my feelings about their work and things like that was talking about Channel Awesome, which, they made, I'm not going to recap that whole thing, but there were a lot of things that came out about the way that channel worked, particularly in regards to its affiliates and how it treated them. And when that came out, initially they made a statement that just got them in hotter water. And then they realized they must have learned their lesson because there was even hints that they were preparing further statements like a video or something, but they never released it and they never talked about it again. And you know what? Channel Awesome's doing fine. They took the hit. They lost whatever viewers they were going to lose when the thing initially came up. And then they lost a few more when they made that bad statement and rebuttal. But after that, they stopped hemorrhaging viewers because they stopped bringing it up. They stopped doing the thing that was getting them in trouble. And that is ultimately the thing about Gina Carano. It kept happening over and over again. And I will again reiterate, I do not believe even for a heartbeat that she was let go because of the specific thing she said. Even now, even with this last thing, even with Lucasfilm saying it's because of her abhorrent tweets, it's not because in a vacuum, the people at the top of LucasArts think we can't work with this person because of what she believes. Let's be real. They think we can't work with this person because they are a liability. They are going to hurt our bottom line. It's not about an actual moral judgment about what she says. It's about the impact and the ripple effects of what she is saying on the potential viewing audience. And at this point, the calculus was very simple for Lucasfilm. What's going to be the outcry if we let her go? And there has been some, as would be expected. Versus what will the outcry be if we overlook this again? And you know what? The damage from letting her go, they figure that's going to be a lot less than if we keep her. So she's gone. Much like I touched on in the Joss Whedon video, ultimately these decisions, these actual, and I'm not talking about the people online calling for firings. And I'm not talking about the people who are calling them out or articles being written or anything like that. I'm talking about the actual choice to keep or fire these people. The folks making those decisions, the people at the top, the only calculus they have, the only thing they care about is what one is better for us financially. This will always be the calculus. Because if she had just not kept posting these things on social media, they weren't going to make her change her opinion. They weren't going to start making her think differently. And as I said, none of this was about on-set behavior. They weren't going to make her change how she worked. They just wanted her to stop bringing negative attention. And because Gina Carano's biggest thing that she's involved in is The Mandalorian, every single time her name came up in a negative way, The Mandalorian was right there. Mandalorian star causes Twitter outrage. Every time she did something, their product that they're trying to sell gets stuck in the headline and makes them look bad. And that is why she's gone. The classic template, the classic playbook for a celebrity getting in hot water in the days before social media, because I'm old enough to remember this nonsense, was maybe an apology, depending on what it was. Usually a stint in some kind of rehab, whether it be drug rehab or emotional counseling or what have you, to get them out of the public eye and away from cameras for a couple of months or however long it took, and then come back and just don't do it again. The problem is, if your issue is social media posting, unless somebody takes your phone away, they can't get you out of the public eye. It's just going to keep happening in a way that didn't used to be the case. It used to be far easier for celebrities to just keep their heads down. That's not to say that it actually should be hard work, but especially anyone who is building part of their brand or has any kind of personal dependence on their social media following or is reinforced by that or what have you, it is going to be difficult for them to not do that anymore. It's just really funny to me that she's now gone from The Mandalorian and no one is talking about Rosario Dawson anymore. And again, to be fair, she was dropped off the lawsuit and she stayed out of trouble since then. But it's that second thing that ensured that she would stay employed, and she's getting a spinoff. It's been reported that Gina Carano was probably going to get a spinoff. They were considering it. It was going to be announced at the December shareholders thing or whatever it was, where Disney announced all kinds of Star Wars and Marvel, etc. stuff. But because she started tweeting about anti-masking in November, they scrapped plans for that. They didn't fire her right off, but they were already limiting the amount of ties there were going to be between her and their product. And now, 3 strikes and you're gone. And because I know some people are going to ask, does this mean that I'm now going to watch The Mandalorian, the second season, which I said I wouldn't, and I haven't up to this point? I don't know. I mean, maybe. The thing was, I didn't love the first season enough that I was in a massive rush or I was feeling all that pained at skipping the second season. First season was fine. I enjoyed it well enough. I wasn't dying for a second season to begin with. And I don't know what my comfort level will be trying to watch the second one. It'll probably be fine at some point. But it's not like I was waiting, oh God, please fire her so I can watch the show. Please fire her so I can watch the show. Like, I'm still gonna have to watch her. And even though, again, trying to be fair, Rosario Dawson has stayed out of trouble and there have not been further incidents, I'm still not sure if I'm comfortable seeing her yet. I may get there, but I'm not suddenly going to jump on the show because the decision that I made at the time to not watch the show wasn't a moral stance, and I wasn't calling for a boycott, and I wasn't telling anyone else what they should or shouldn't do. The reason I didn't want to watch it was I personally didn't feel comfortable. I just had a gut level factor. And that's less than it was now, but it's not completely gone. So I'll say what I said in that video, and I'll say what I said in the Joss Whedon video. I'm not going to tell you what your opinion should be on this. And I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't watch or start or stop watching because someone is or isn't involved with something. I'm just going to tell you what I'm planning to do, at least at present, and give you the lay of the land. But it's not my business to tell you how to process these things. It is just really interesting to have the contrast back to back of Joss Whedon for on-set behavior, Gina Carano for offset behavior. Because honestly, she had a much better chance at bouncing back from this. All she had to do was stop posting. Him, not only was there the PR problem, which is probably the bigger part of why he was ultimately let go, but even if the PR hadn't gotten, when I say let go, like he's not involved in the HBO show he's doing anymore, he's probably not going to get hired to do anything for a while. But there was some degree of a PR element there. But there's also the issue with Whedon, like people weren't going to want to work with him just because the things coming out about him said, this is a toxic work environment. Gina Carano didn't have any of that. All she had to do was stop tweeting. And she didn't. Hopefully I could be done with these kinds of topics for a little bit. Like, the fact that I had to do this 2 days in a row, back to back, is just... This is the world. Oh my gosh. So, Gina Carano no longer involved in Star Wars in any way, shape, or form. What do you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. I have a Patreon, which is how I pay my bills, and it's what keeps this whole operation up and running. Any amount you're able to help is greatly appreciated. There are perks at every tier, including things like early access to certain videos. And besides that, I have merch such as Beautiful, Valid, Loved. Link in the description for these, available in 16 different Pride colors. But if you aren't up to spending money, there's the usual like, share, subscribe. All those help me out. But you also don't have to. Because at the end of the day, you are the council. I am only running the meetings. And until next time, I have spoken.